for their kind invitation. It's a great honor to be here.
You are welcome, sir. It's a great honor to see you here.
No. It's really, I wish I could be there actually in person, because I've always wanted to visit Çanakkale, but unfortunately because of the pandemic, but hopefully in the future I'll be there.
Yes.
So today what I'm going to present is a kind of paper it's a paper I wrote. My background, my dissertation and my background, a large part of my research has been the regulation of public utilities companies. So these public utilities companies are like electric companies, natural gas companies, which we still regulate, the government still regulates, and also with the data I have, telephone companies. So we're not talking about cellular telephones, which were never regulated, but we're talking about the wireline telephones, if you can remember those days when we actually talked on the phone with wires, right? So these public utilities are not public enterprises. They are, these are privately owned. They have shareholders. And a large part of my research has been how, especially in the United States and Canada, but also in Turkey even now and other countries all over, how the government regulates these natural monopolies. So traditionally, the way these natural monopolies have been regulated is by a process called rate of return regulation, all right? It's a bit outdated now, it still goes on. The natural gas companies, for example, in Turkey are still regulated like this as far as I know. And the way it happens is there's a government agency or department, okay? And let's call it the state regulator, okay? So it's a regulator which decides the prices of what these companies can charge their customers, okay? So and the way these prices are decided, it's like a court hearing. We say it's a formal hearing, but it's really like a court procedure. If you think of the regulator as the judge, the lawyers and the experts from the companies will basically say why their rates have to be high or low, probably high. Customers can intervene in this process. Then these are really called testimonies. And then the regulator, what the regulator does is he considers them like a judge and decides what the prices are. Now, the way the prices, which, you know, your electric company can charge you or your natural gas company can charge you, and in the old days, the telephone companies could charge you, are set, the regulator sets them so that these natural monopolies can recoup their cost of production, okay, and also earn a fair rate of return on their cost of capital, okay? So these are the two main reasons. Now, the main problem with this type and why countries all over the world are trying to move away from this kind of regulation is because it provides no incentive, okay? It provides absolutely no incentive for these companies to cut costs, right? Because if you are the CEO of, let's say, an electric company, why would you cut costs? Because if you cut costs, which is a great thing, in the next public hearing, the government will set lower prices for your company because now you have lower costs. So this has been a huge criticism of this form of regulation. And if those of you, I don't know if you do industrial organization or especially the subfield which I do, regulation, you will see that different countries are trying to move away from this type of regulation, right? They're also, a lot of these companies are also being privatized, like in Turkey in the natural gas sector. So this is a problem with this form of regulation. However, there is a kind of ironic way where there is room for cutting costs, okay, in this type of regulation. And that is, obviously, this kind of formal hearing is a bureaucratic process, okay, and it's a large process. It's like a court hearing, right? So this court process may take time, okay? So so the time in which the prices of the companies stay fixed, of the electric companies, natural gas, telephone, and also water companies, right? Water supply companies, but I didn't consider that in my data. They stay fixed. If the company can reduce costs during that time, then they get to keep the extra cost savings for themselves, okay? So ironically, the administrative inefficiency, okay, the administrative inefficiency, which leads to the regulator having a delay in basically holding these formal hearings and then changing price to reflect current costs, the longer that is, the more the incentive of the firm to cut costs during that time, to cut the cost of production, right? So the period in which the prices of the firms stay fixed, okay, the rates which your electric company and telephone company charge you stay fixed, is called regulatory lag. Okay, so the idea throughout, since the 70s, right? Since the 70s, the idea has been, and these regulators, okay, practitioners, right, they know more about this than actual theoretical economists. They are under the idea that the longer the regulatory lag period is, okay, the less, the more incentive a firm has to cut costs. And with this idea, okay, so what's basically going on here is they're divorcing, okay, they're divorcing the way they set prices with cost. So they basically say that your price does not depend on your cost. And the idea is, if your price, which is decided by the regulator, is not decided by cost, firms have an incentive to cut costs because they can keep their cost savings. And this is not only there in rate of return regulation, but the way in the United Kingdom they're thinking of now regulating electric companies, and in New York State, they are intentionally making sure that the prices of the companies stay about for longer. So these companies have a way to cut costs. Okay, so this is believed theoretically. These are some papers, Bormann Kleverick in the 70s, which looked at this idea, and sometimes it's just taken for granted. And there is really policy implications where they just take it for granted that if the regulatory lag is long, the incentive for the firm to cut costs should be there. However, there have not been real empirical proof of this effect, okay? And for good reason, because it's endogenized. There are lots of endogeneity problems to measure how much a company will decrease costs because of regulatory lag. And it's also present in my paper, endogeneity, okay? But the idea is, and I believe, but the idea is I try to give a rush, because I already had the data collected of the cost of production of Florida companies, okay? So Florida is obviously most of you know, is a state in the United States, and I had the cost of production and operating statistics data for all their regulated, investor-owned regulated companies of electricity, telephone, and also natural gas. So I decided to do a structurally, econometrically model, just a rough estimate of how much a company reduces cost, the longer is the regulatory lag, to see its effect, okay? So that's the whole point of this paper. It is basically I tried to structurally model it and give a first attempt to see how much does a public utility reduce its cost of operating cost due to the length of the regulatory lag. Okay, so I had that data as well. So basically what I assume here, so we start with a theoretic model and build up to the structural model. So I believe, so in the basic model in the paper, there is one regulatory lag period, okay, and that starts at 0 and ends in year t, okay? When we see summary statistics, we will see that the average lag for all 3 types of companies are about 2 years, right? But there are large variations. There can be 10 years, and you won't see that there. If you read the paper, you might, but the average lag for all 3 types of companies is 2. So what happens is an average lag period starts at year 0 and ends at year capital T, and firm I has an annual cost function, okay, CI0, Q bar I0 equal to AI, which is a kind of technology scale parameter, Q bar delta I0. So you can see this as kind of like a Cobb-Douglas type of cost function. I tried various specifications. This one just fit the data. Now, Q bar, as you can notice here, is an external parameter, okay, to the firm. Why? Remember, these are regulated firms, and they usually have, my data especially, they have universal coverage obligations. That is, if you're an electric company or a water company, the government sets the regulator, which is the Florida Public Service Commission, in this case, the FPSC. So the government regulator sets your price. And once the price is set, you have to supply anyone that demands your services, whether it's electricity, water, at that price. Because as you will see, as in the data, you are the sole provider of that service in that area, okay, in that specific geographical area, right? So basically to the firm, this quantity supplied, Q bar, is external, right? All right. So what I assume is in the first period itself, at I, okay, at period 0, the firm expends all its cost-saving effort. So cost-saving effort is EI, all right? And there, what we have is in each of the periods in the regulatory lag period, which is T between 1 to T, the cost in each period is equal to AI, Q bar delta, I0, EI, eta. Okay, eta is the basically the is the regulatory lag elasticity of operating cost, as we will see. Why this? Again, why this? I tried a number of various specifications with my data. This one seemed to be the best. I will show you a fit once we look at the empirical results. Okay, so eta is the absolute value of the firm's cost elasticity with respect to cost saving effort. So this is the kind of, this is the parameter I will somehow try to estimate, okay? So what we assume is both the firm and the regulator have some idea of what the regulatory lag is going to be in the outset, okay? So working with the Florida Public Commission, it is the same regulator, same officials, which work with the same people at the company, and they have repeated interactions for the last 50 years. Obviously, the people change. So they have an idea of when the next formal hearing will be, okay? So obviously, we don't have observations on expectations. So what I basically do is I use rational expectations, basically assumption that the real regulatory lag period, their expectations are correct, okay, of the real regulatory lag period, and I use the real regulatory lag period in my data. All right, so basically what happens is at the beginning of period 0, the firm maximizes its so I should say maximizes its revenue during that time. So what I assume is the regulator sets the firm's prices so that its revenue equals its operating cost. Okay, so in each period, its revenue is this. Its operating cost in the first period, CI0, Q bar I0 minus CIT. I won't keep on, there'll be a lot of symbols coming up, so I won't keep on repeating it because hopefully all of you can see this, but please interrupt me if you need any clarifications. With a discount factor, it's continuously discounted between 0 to T. So E minus RIT, RI is the discount factor of cost of capital, D to T, minus epsilon. Epsilon is the cost of the cost saving effort, EI, right? So he maximizes this by deciding how much effort he is going to expend, right? And if you solve this maximization problem, you see that you get this expression for the optimal cost-saving effort. And if we take the natural logarithm of that, you get this expression over here, 1 over 1 plus eta, and in brackets ln eta plus ln ai minus ln epsilon minus ln ri plus ln 1 minus e to the power minus rit plus delta 1 plus eta ln PQI0. Now, one thing, if you noticed, is I have Q bar I0, okay? Now, I swapped it with PQI0. First of all, in my data, I didn't really have observations of QI0. And the second reason for this is I have 3 types of companies, right? So I have telephone, I have water, no, not water, sorry. I have natural gas, and I have electricity. So you can't have a homogeneous quantity for that. So what I did was I made the assumption, which is pretty clear in the literature, empirical literature, that the supply of these public utilities is inelastic. Okay, these are necessary these are all necessary services, even telephone wireline, because we're talking about a period from 1978 to 2008. Okay, maybe in the 2000s, wireline telephony became more elastic. Okay, with the introduction of cellular telephones and also email and so on. So having said that, I do have revenue. I have operating revenue. So this can be used as a proxy for this Q bar, a quantity supplied measure, right? So this is the natural logarithm of the optimum effort, right? Now, if we take the natural logarithm of the operating cost in the first year, which is year 0, and the last year of the regulatory lag, T0, what we get is ln CI0 is equal to ln I AI plus delta ln Q bar. And then over here in the last year, if I take the ln of the, so it's the operating cost of the year. These are yearly cost of, it'll be CIT equal to ln AI plus delta ln I Q bar I0 minus eta ln EI. Also for estimation purposes, remember these are different companies. So if I think of a fixed effect for each and every company, okay? So I have repeated observations of the same company, okay? So this is the time invariant factor of Fi. It can be some kind of management, some kind of peculiarity each of the companies have. And also I used a political kind of, this is standard in regulatory economics, a political kind of variable here, which is repub I0. Usually, the way the regulator in Florida is used, it is decided who the head lawyer who should go is decided by the state legislature, right? So, and there are two major parties in the United States, Democrats and Republicans. So repub is just the percentage of Republicans in the state legislature, okay? That may have an effect on the cost, okay? So if we add these two control variables to the cost at the two times, okay, so we get these, all right, and then as you can guess, I will subtract this, the natural logarithm of the operating cost in the first year with the natural logarithm of the cost in the last year, right? And we get this equation, which is the difference ln CIT is equal to beta, the change in percentage of Republicans, minus eta ln EI plus UIT. Now EI will be the optimal EI, so we can variously in this equation from our calculations before, we can replace that with the optimal EI, which I got over here. So we do that, which is here. Now, unfortunately, which is the problem of structural econometrics, is I'm going to have to make a number of assumptions because this structural parameter, okay, is not observable, okay, technological, and also the cost of capital, okay, the cost of capital in each of the industries of each of the firms is not observable. What I will do is I will first assume the cost of capital is the same for all utilities. And what I will do to replace the terms with AIRI is basically have dummies representing the different industries. So we have three industries, right? Electric, natural gas, and telephone. So the idea is the technology varies with each of the industries, but are the same within the same firms, the two same firms within the industry. RI, with the assumptions I have, you can say the same thing to RI, or you can say they're the same. So we will basically for these AI and RI terms, we can basically substitute with these dummies, DE and DG, okay? Basically, you know, controlling for the different industries, also assuming that the cost of capital is the same in all industries. This minus RI can be substituted with minus R bar over here, right? Also, because the time is 1978 to 2008, there may be obviously there'll be technological progress. So to control for technological progress, what I have, and to control for, I have a year dummy, YT, But to control for technological progress within industry, right? So maybe the electric industry, the production of electricity, there's technological progress more than in the natural gas industry. I have interaction terms with this yearly dummy with the industry dummy. So I also have YT, YTD, YTDG, and YT, right? So at the end of the day, we have this, okay? This kind of reduced form of the structural form. Now we have to deal with this, okay? This part of the equation here, which is minus eta 1 plus eta ln 1 minus E minus R bar T, right? This big T is the lag length. Now, this, if you break up this expression, it becomes plus NR bar 1 plus eta, sorry, not N, eta, sorry, times T minus eta 1 plus eta ln ERT minus 1. Now, T can serve as a proxy for this entire term. So for the time being, we can ignore this term because T can serve as a proxy, and ultimately the reduced form with the data, okay, what we have is the final data form is the difference between ln, you know, CIJT, J is the industry here, equal to gamma 0 plus gamma I, the electric dummy, plus gamma T, the natural gas dummy, gamma 3 YT, the year dummy, plus I4, the interaction between the year and the electric dummy, gamma 5, interaction between the year and the gas dummy, beta, the change in percentage change in Republican representation in the state legislature. This one, gamma 6 plus gamma 6. This is the one we need to be concerned about, right? Because this will contain information for the cost elasticity of I should say the regulatory lag elasticity of the cost, okay? T minus gamma 7 ln, okay? Which is the given revenue, operating revenue, plus UIT. Okay, so gamma 6 is the one we need to be concerned about, is equal to eta R bar 1 plus gamma. And if we wanted to find the firm's operating cost elasticity with respect to regulatory lag, which is, you know, D ln CIT, D ln T, okay, which would be minus gamma 6 times E to the power minus R bar T times T minus 1 E to the power minus R bar T, okay? So let me talk to you a little bit about the data. The whole point of this exercise is that the data is very rare to collect. And through my, so I did my dissertation in University of Florida, so through my contacts there, which is very much involved with the Florida Public Service Commission, I was able to collect 200 cases, regulatory lag cases. I only used 107 regulatory lag observations of the entire 200 cases, because in some cases, it is not the regulator which starts a rate case to change prices. It is basically the company itself which asks the regulator to start a rate case to change prices. So there would be an endogeneity problem, because they're the company itself, it decides when the regulatory lag period is. So I got rid of those cases. And I also collected some operating statistics data. And, you know, the political data on the state representation can easily be collected from the state government website, right? So here are some of my summary statistics. As you can see, we had very large telephone and from the operating revenues, right? Are huge. I mean, there were 2 or 3, so there were 13 companies in all. So there were like 5 large electric companies for each area of Florida, and there were about 5 telephone companies, but there were many smaller natural gas companies, okay? So what you will see is huge telephone and electric companies and kind of smaller natural gas companies. As you can see, the average lag is somewhere close to 2 years, but I can tell you from the data, and if you look, maybe I don't have it because this is straight from my paper, but there was large variation between each. Some years it was 10 years, some it was instantaneous in all the industries, okay? So first of all, what I did was, to decide on what kind of cost specification to have here, I tried a number of cost specifications, okay? So one of them, this Cobb-Douglas type really stuck, right? So again, Q bar I substituted with the operating revenue, okay? So this was the best fit, okay? This was the best, these were done with natural logarithm. So this was the best fit of the cost function. So I went and did that. And then I calculated this equation, the main equation we want to calculate, this basically gamma 6, right? And what I found was that is equal to, statistically significant 0.04, all right? And you can see the operating revenue is not statistically significant. What's encouraging, because these are very rough estimates, is it has a negative sign, which it is supposed to in the structural equation, okay? Though that's not saying much, I thought I'd comment on it. And then, so basically, if we take gamma 6 as 0.06, we can find an expression from the firm's operating cost elasticity with respect to regulatory lag, which is so this, we replace 0.04 with the gamma 6 minus 0.04, E minus R bar T times T minus 1 minus E to the power minus RT. Then we can make, this is a rough estimate by itself, but if we can make an even rougher estimate, we can take some industry from other researchers. If we take some industry estimates, okay, of what this R bar is, okay, so we know from our own data, the average T of the entire industry is 1.78. We can take some measures of R bar, okay, which I did. We find that the average, and what I did also, this is just for the entire thing, but what you can do is more relevant. You can, if you read the paper, it differentiates within industry, okay? So it goes in within industry and tries to get the estimates. What we did find, it's like minus 1.108. So it's close to 1. So every 1% increase in the regulatory lag, the company will decrease 1%, also 1% of its costs, okay? I mean, this is a very, very rough estimate, but it's some attempt to basically give some justification for what the regulators and the policymakers are doing all over the world with these kind of new incentive regulatory schemes. Obviously, this can be better done with more precise estimates of the cost of capital, and so on. So that's pretty much it. That's it.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your valuable contribution to the conference. Let me ask the participants and guests if they have any questions. Are there any questions about the paper presented?
I have one question.
Yes.
So I was wondering, the recession years in Florida, should it be controlled in your estimation?
Actually, that's a good point. It's and I can escape from that right away because my paper is up till 2008. I think 2007. So 2008, the recession really hit. I was there in Florida at that time. So the data stops there, and it really does stop there because I collected this data during my dissertation, and I was there during 2008 too. So the data I got from the commission stops at 2008. There are I think there's just 1 or 2 observations in 2008 and 2007. Very few, because by 2000s, what started to happen after 96, they deregulated the telephone industry. Even natural gas was being deregulated. So the only real companies which were being really regulated, though there were observations of small natural gas companies, were after 2002, 2003. There were just a couple of electricity companies anyway, so it's not a problem. So my data actually stops just before or just as the recession, 2000 recession is about to begin. So that's my answer, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Thank you, sir.